I have invited like all new teachers and everyone. So when you go to nearpod.com and log in using your Google account, if you use your Google button, you should be part of our ACES school account. And you could check that by, if you go into your account, you should see that when you go to your everybody can see my screen all right?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure that I'm just not talking to myself. Okay, so when you go to your settings and you go into your dashboard and kind of click on yourself and you click on manage Nearpod account, you should then see that you are part of the school, right? And for any reason you don't have part of that school information, then just shoot me an email just so I can double check that you are there. But I've gone in and pretty much added everybody, so you should be there. But just in case, you can always go ahead and just email me and I'll make sure to link you to our school account. And so Nearpod itself is great because it kind of has these already created modules for you of lessons, but also the fact that you can create your own. From the dashboard on Nearpod, you will have the ability to, before it was you were able to take slides or PowerPoints and bring those into Nearpod, and then you can add activities. Nearpod has definitely changed that a little bit and made it a lot easier now to create lessons, which we'll go through. Before it was a little cumbersome because if you had to make a change, you'd have to like redo the whole thing and then upload it again. But now with the add-ons that Nearpod has, it's become a lot easier to do that. You're able to also add PDFs. It has a new video feature, so it kind of has a new interactive video. It kind of works like Edpuzzle. And so it has its own kind of built-in Edpuzzle feature now on Nearpod. That's a new feature that they have. They have all of their pre-made lessons. You can now have participation. You could either do the live lesson, which was a traditional way that all the kids would be able to get on the code and you do everything together and participate. Then there's the student-paced lesson, which the kids would then be able to do it on their own. And then one of the new things that they have is called front of the class, which is actually you kind of just have yourself on like present mode in the front. So instead of having the kids, if the kids all don't have devices, the front of the class method is just kind of like you're just presenting in the front and then you kind of all do things all together collaboratively. You're able to see reports. The good thing about Nearpod as well is if you have those activities, you can pull up the report. So it does work as data that you can go back and analyze and take a look at those things, and it works as formative assessments to see what the students have done. And it also has kind of a gamified feature as well, which works great for review games, where they can also take a look things and have like reviews that are kind of in a gamified version, which makes things a little bit more interactive. And basically that's kind of like your dashboard at a glance. When you go into your Nearpod dashboard, that's like kind of everything that you're able to see. One of the first things that I would suggest that you do when you go into your Nearpod account, if you haven't, is to check your settings to see what's on. And that's just by clicking on your profile page from your dashboard and look at your lesson settings, because there's a lot of different features that are important to make sure you do have on. One of the things is like when kids join a Nearpod a lesson, and it always asks them to put their name. If you have the enable student autofill name clicked on, that means that they would have to log in with their Google account and it'll automatically log in their name, because sometimes when you want them to type in their name, they don't always type in their names, or they'll type in like a nickname and then you really can't tell who's who when you go back to the reports. So one of the, I see Miss Coyote like nodding her head fiercely. So yeah, it's like one of those things that then you can't tell who's who. So by clicking that one on, it autofills that already for them. And so you already know that at least you have the correct student's name on there. The immersive reader is something, because Nearpod also works with Microsoft, is that it'll work for when they're in a lesson. And if you don't know what the immersive reader is, it's a little book that you can click on and it'll automatically like read to you what the directions are. It'll read the text to you. That's what the immersive reader is. So Nearpod has that built in as well, so that in lessons, students can click on that little icon and they can get whatever text is there read to them. Also, New student notes, if you want students to be able to take notes on their Nearpod lessons, that's something that they're able to do. You could turn that on. So it's just different toggles to make sure that you have on. If you want to show quiz and multiple choice questions results, if they're working on student paced. Also the collaborate board, if it's something that you then assign student pace, you need to make sure that this is turned on, because if you assign a collaborate board for student paced lessons, if this is not on, it's not going to let the students do it. So it's just some settings that you just need to make sure you go through to make sure they're on. Also, they'll require student submissions. If you create any activities that are student paced, if you toggle this on, it makes the student have to do it. If not, like, students can just bypass activities and just kind of click through everything. But if you want students to actually work on that activity, if you turn that on, it requires them to actually complete the activity before being able to move on to the next part of the lesson. Ms. Ketcherside, do you have a question?
Yeah, when they do take the notes, I've let them do that before. How could they utilize those? So can it go into their drive? Is there a way for them to upload the notes into their drive?
So yes, so the notes have different things. When they're taking notes, they are able to save those notes to their drive, or they can email it to themselves. And now that they have the email feature, they are able to email those notes to themselves. So those are definitely things that they can access later, either one of those two ways.
Ms. Sereni, I have a quick question. Where did
Yes.
you say we should see the school information?
So in your profile, it should say the school information.
If we're able to see all these things that are toggling on and off, that means we're in the schools, right? If we have all those options for us?
Well, these are pretty much in anybody's settings.
Oh.
So you'll be able to see this from your profile. It'll say your school, the school. If it doesn't say like Aventura around where that you're part of the school, then you're not part of it. Or if you don't see from your dashboard, if you don't see like there's a school library that you're part of that says Aventura Charter, then you wouldn't be part of the school. So if you can see the school library, then,
so what should we do if not? Email you?
Yeah, email me if you're not on there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Are you not on there, Jody?
I'm not on there.
Oh.
Wah.
Log in with your Google account?
Yeah?
That's so funny, Jody, because we were in that Nearpod meeting together.
Yeah, well, my Nearpod stuff that I created for that meeting is here, but I don't have any of the school stuff.
No, I don't either. I don't see it.
You don't either, Ms. DeVito? Because I have.
Hold on. I think I'm looking at your
I
screen.
wonder, Miss Sereni, did you not do Jody Campbell Angelis when you signed me up? I hate to take everybody's time though.
No, that's okay. I mean, we're right here, so I might as well look at it. Because you should have been in there like a long time ago. That's all I'm saying. Let me go into here.
Nearpod. Oh yes, I am. I just don't have anything up here.
See, you're there.
Is it the current?
Yeah.
Is it Jody Campbell Angelis?
Yep.
Well, that's weird.
Sure is.
Because when I log on, I don't see anything for the school. All right,
But
let's.
if you click on school library, then it
Yeah.
shows up Aventura underneath it, I think.
Yeah, I don't have school library.
All right,
Oh.
we'll take a look at yours
Okay,
later on, Jody. I mean, you're there, so you should show
I'll
up.
keep trying. Go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to hold you up.
No problem. Okay. So let's go back to. So from those settings, so just make sure that you take a look at your settings to make sure you have your settings toggled correctly, so that you're really optimizing your Nearpod lessons. Something else that's within the Nearpod dashboard, they have this quick launch feature, and sometimes we kind of think about Nearpod and picture like this whole entire module, but technically you can just use the activity features on Nearpod and not necessarily have to build out a huge lesson. Like, what if I just want to use one of the activity features? Maybe I just want to use the collaborate board for something that we're doing really quick in class, or one of the draw it questions. I just want to use it really quick with my students. So they have these quick launch versions that you can just click on it and it'll automatically just create a really quick collaborate board that I could just put a topic into, and I could just launch it for my students, just give them the code really quick, and they could just join and then just answer that question if I needed to. So I could post it into Google Classroom, or I could just give them the code, and this is just like a real-time quick launch. So I don't necessarily have to build out my lessons when I'm using Nearpod. I can just use their actual activity features. If I just want to use it in class as we're doing our discussions or whatever we're doing, I can just go ahead and just use that quick feature within our class. Get out of here. I don't want to save this.
Rini, I found the library, sorry.
Okay. No worries.
Is this like Google Jamboard, or because that one went a little off because the kids some of them were playing around and drawing on the screen, and
so in the collaborate board, it's almost like a Padlet. They could only like post their answers and it'll automatically go on there. Not like Jamboard where you can like move everything around. And so in Jamboard, there's a lot more movement that happens with the people that are on it.
Okay, good.
So this is just pretty much, it just shows like this. Like they'll just go ahead and type in whatever their information is and then post it, and it'll just show up here on the board.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay.
So, and that's it. And that's all that they can do. So it's just like a quick kind of post. So it's almost like a Padlet in that sense that they can just go ahead and just add in things. They can add in words, and they can add in images as well. So they can drop images if they needed to as well. So those two things can be put in there.
That was the question I had. What's the advantage, disadvantage? Is there one comparing this to a Padlet?
Well, a Padlet, I mean, I would have to go in and go ahead and create it and then share it. It just takes longer. If this is just a quick, I just want to collaborate really quick brainstorming board, I can just go ahead and go in here and just click on the collaborate board. Boom, here's the code, join really quick and type this in. You know, this is just for kind of, if I wanted to do a quick activity, I could do it that way. So it's just a Padlet, you'd have to go in and create the Padlet and kind of name it. So there's a little bit more back end stuff that you would have to do. And this is just something that on the fly, if I wanted to do it, it's a lot easier to just kind of start.
And if you were doing that like on the fly, would you recommend posting it to Google Classroom, or just
if I'm on a Zoom and I'm doing it on the fly, I would just post the code for them on the chat and be like, okay, type in this code and join.
Okay.
I mean, depending on what we're doing, but if this is just something quick that I'm just doing at the moment, then I would think the easiest would be just to type in the code on the chat and then have the kids do it from there. Okay. Reports. So reports you can access two different ways. From your dashboard, you'll see that under the libraries, you have the reports, which will then list like all of the different assignments in Nearpod that you've done, and then you'd be able to access reports from that. Or from the actual Nearpod lesson, if I click on those three dots, then I could go ahead and click on the reports, and it'll give me the reports for that specific lesson. And what you'll see is when you pull up those reports is that you'll see then, this is what it would look like if I access my reports, all of the different reports that I've done. And then when I click on it, it drops down depending on how many times I've launched that session, right? How many different codes students have had, it would then show. So from this one, I've had like 2 different sessions. I can see the number of students. And when I click on it, it'll then show me the students' names, and then it would show me what the actual like questions are. These exactly don't have, let me go into ones that have like actual questions that students did. Here we go. So here you'll see then you have the student's name, and then you'll see the different activities that I did. It would then show me what they did for those, what they got in each of those different things.
And you would just use this kind of like as a participation grade? Because I always struggled with the reports, like it shows
I mean,
just
these
like
are
the
all different
percent.
types, depending on what type of question you're asking. They can be a different type of formative assessment. It's there for you to kind of guide you to see where students are. And then from there, you can then break it down to, I know these students understand this. I can have them work on something else. These students need some work. Maybe I assign them something else to help remediate that. Maybe there's a specific Nearpod that I'm assigning to them just on those specific topics that they don't understand, or I'll meet with them small group for something else because they don't understand it. So it works great for formative assessments. If you use like the quiz feature, you can use it as a grade and a performance task grade. So it really depends on how you do the questions. You can look at each of the questions individually. So this was like the open-ended questions. I could then break it down to see what everybody answered. The draw, you can go question by question and see what each of the students then answers were. So you can really go into the reports, and it's really up to you to how you want to take that information, whatever your purpose is or ultimately what you want to use with it. But within those reports, you're able to see what all the students then did. And if you toggled on that feature that makes them have to complete those activities, then you know that the students are completing those activities and they have to be completing those activities as they work on it. One of the best features so far right now for Nearpod is that Google add-on that they made. Because now I can create my Nearpod lessons within Google Slides, which makes things a lot easier. Before, it was like impossible to collaborate with other teachers when creating Nearpod lessons because you couldn't work on them at the same time when you were making them on Nearpod. Now I can go ahead and share my slides out with whoever I want to. We can all work on it together and at the same time be creating our Nearpod lessons as well. And so this is through an add-on. And so while in slides, you just go to add-ons and you would go to get add-ons and look for the Nearpod add-on, and then it'll show up here. And so whenever I want to use the Nearpod add-on, I have it, my lessons open, my slides open, I'll click on open Nearpod, and this little side menu is going to pop up. And once it does that, then I'm actually able to, as I go through my slides, let's say I want to be able to add like an activity after this particular slide. I can then go through here and select what type of activity question I want. I go ahead and select it. And then I can go ahead and create my activity. And then once I do that, I'm done. It'll then automatically, this is going to take too long. Let me just do a quick one. So once I create that activity and fill out whatever I need for the activity, I click on done, and now you see it's there on my slideshow. And so once I finish everything and I've done the whole entire thing, I'll just click on save and go to Nearpod, and then this whole entire presentation will get uploaded to my Nearpod. So if I were to save and go to Nearpod, now my lesson is saving right here in my dashboard. It's going to ask me to sign in just to verify. And so now it's saving all of my information, my lessons within the Nearpod, and now it's ready to use. If I were to share this out with someone, if I had shared it before, each teacher then that I had shared those slides with would have to go in and save that Nearpod lesson, and it'll show up on their own dashboard. So it just has, so now there it is. And so now here is my slide presentation. It's ready to go. Now, if I were to make any edits, I can go back in here and edit whatever I wanted to. If I wanted to change my activities or I wanted to add something else, I can go back in and make my edits and then once again save it, and it'll go ahead and re-save that lesson. If I had a collaborating teacher on their end, what they would see if there were changes, they would see a big red box around the lesson letting the teacher know, oh, there was updates. And so you'll be able to click on it and update your own lesson to the newest version. So as a collaborator, you would see that there were some kind of updates made by somebody else with the Nearpod add-on. And so you can go ahead and update your lesson if you needed to. So it's a lot easier now to kind of work with other people and create a Nearpod lessons and to go back and edit the lessons than it was before with the Google add-on. All right, we have a couple of questions. So, Ms. Kartz?
Yes, so let's say you don't want to necessarily create an entire Google slide and convert it to Nearpod. What if you just wanted to create a Google slide and embed just one slide that has an activity like a Nearpod feature, like this collaborate or a video or a matching? Is that doable, or does it have to be the entire presentation and then transfer it to Nearpod?
No, you don't have to do an entire presentation. You can do whatever I want.
Oh.
But if I was just going to use an activity, then I wouldn't actually have to do it through slides. I would just do it in Nearpod.
Okay.
If I was just doing the activity itself. But yeah, you don't have to do like a full, it could be as many slides or as little slides as you want to that you can use.
Okay.
Ms. Getcherside?
No, I was just going to say, I'm just playing around with the presentation, and I added a poll to the end of the presentation, although I can't see my question for some reason.
Let me get rid of this. Okay.
Oh, Ms. Durini.
Yes.
During spring, we did this for Cloud9. So the 4th through 8th graders actually, like I took a Google slide that was just basic, but it had video clips that I wanted, and I used the Nearpod add-on and was able to make it way more interactive with the collaborate, with the drawing, with the polls. There's even a really cool game that you can kind of put in your own questions, and it has them like racing up to the mountain. So it was really cool, and the kids got to, it was just for my Google Slides, and once I put that in, it was really easy to make it more interactive for them.
Yeah, definitely with the Google add-on, it's made it a lot easier to make things into Nearpod activities than before. So that's definitely a huge plus on their end with creating this add-on. So if we kind of take a look at, I'm just going to break it down to all of the different types of activities you can actually use in your Nearpod lesson. So the audio then is kind of inserting any WAV or MP3 file from your device. You can totally go ahead and insert that audio if you want like the kids to listen to something, and from there they had to answer something based on their listening skills, right? So you could insert audio in that sense. BBC videos, if I wanted them to watch something that has directly, they click on it and then it'll have a collection of different types of videos from BBC Worldwide that you can go ahead and go through and select to be able to insert. The collaborate board, we've seen the draw it feature, which allows then students to be able to draw, especially for the younger kids, a lot easier to use that draw it tool, especially if they're using something like a tablet. It makes it a lot easier for them to do. You can provide instructions. You can also add media like videos or audio here with directions, and then they would be able to draw it. You can also upload a background image. So if I wanted to provide like a template that I wanted them to draw on, then I could do that with the draw it feature. It doesn't have to be just like a blank template. If I had some kind of slide that I created like a chart or some kind of template for, and I download it as an image, I can then upload that. That becomes the background, and so they can go ahead and draw on top of that, right? Depending on what I want them to do. And then that becomes like a template for them. I could save it, and then that's how they would answer that question. So you can also add a timer to your draw it. So if you're giving them a certain time, I want to see visual, you have this much time to complete it. You can add timers there too. The virtual reality field trips or the 360 view, right? It's going to depend on what you're looking at it. If you're looking at it through like the Nearpod glasses, then it's going to be like more VR. If not, it's going to be the 360 view. Either way, it's pretty cool when you look at it. So if when you're talking about places, especially you're looking for something, you can just put in this like 360 view into the Nearpod, and you know, from there they're able to take that image and be able to look all around them. And so this is great for just kind of conversation or discussion starters when they're looking at something as you look at it. You can add those in. Vocabulary is something that now that Nearpod took control of vocabulary, so they were integrated that into their lessons. They have already created vocabulary lessons. So when you're going into Nearpod, you can also take a look at what they've already created through vocabulary. But but you can insert vocabulary videos. And we do have a school license to vocabulary. So if you haven't checked out vocabulary before, you can make sure you join up through the school. If you go to our staff classroom and go to the ACES Technology Handbook, and you can find the handbook right where you find the link to our ACES Tech site. So in the resources of the staff classroom, right where the tech site is linked there, you'll also find that the handbook is attached there. And in the handbook, I've put in all of the different types of information for all of our programs of how to join up. So you'll notice that vocabulary is there, and there's a link there that you can click on that'll automatically then link your account to our school account. So you'll be able to join and create your own vocabulary account. And so you'll be able to bring in your own videos from vocabulary if you want to create your own lessons, or take a look at the ones that already exist through Nearpod that you might be able to use with your students. And vocabulary has videos on all types of topics, right? There's a lot of different subject matter that vocabulary has videos on. We also have, besides that, there's fill in the blank passages. This is kind of like with a word bank. So if I had a text, I could go in and put in whatever the text is that I want. There's a max of 1,000 characters. And then once I go ahead and put in my text, I could then select which words I would then want to create as their fill in the blank words. So it does create a word bank. They have to choose then the words that would match in what part of the text as they do that. Flipgrid also integrates with Nearpod. And so you can create your Flipgrid topics, and then you'll be able to actually then link your Flipgrid topic into the Nearpod lesson itself. So the students from within Nearpod can go ahead and automatically click on the link, and it'll take them to the Flipgrid topic, and there we can record. So it's all embedded within the same Nearpod lesson. Desmos is also part of Nearpod that you can add. So there's a lot of different types of examples that you can add from Desmos that are already there, especially for all of the different types of math lessons that you have. The matching activity, matching pairs. So you can create different types of matching activity. It can be through text, or it can be with images. Your own memory game as well. The 3D models work. You don't need to have any kind of special glasses for that one. The 3D models is really just kind of selecting it. And when you do, it's just that the students can kind of take that image and move it around and just kind of flip it around. So those 3D models can exist. There's a lot of different types of subjects that you can look for to see if one works for you. Open-ended questions, then naturally, then there is the PDF. If I wanted to insert a PDF, then I can do that. Creating a poll. The quizzes at multiple choice quizzes. The PhET simulations for science and math as well are there that you can include. The slideshow is if I had this Nearpod lesson and I wanted to include like a separate slideshow, what happens is that that whole entire slideshow is going to get linked on there as kind of like a separate lesson. So it's not going to be taking up this whole entire thing, but I can see that bundle of slides separately. If I wanted to link something separately for that, then I can do that. Or if I wanted to insert an image or something like that separately, I can do that within Nearpod as well. We don't use Microsoft's Way. The time to climb is what Ms. Concepcion was talking about, that game, the gamified kind of review game where you can create questions and then the kids are like kind of playing and it does kind of have them climbing a mountain. Then that video is where I can insert video and then create, that's like that Edpuzzle feature that they have now. So right now it's only with YouTube videos, or I can upload my own. It only works with those two types of videos. If it's a YouTube video or if I upload my own, and then you can create multiple choice or open-ended questions for students to complete as they watch the video. And then the web content slide is if I wanted to be able to include links to like a website, or I wanted to include some other type of video or anything like that that was outside of the slide presentation, then I would create the web content slide so I can just put that link in so that the students could then be able to view whatever outside resource I had for them. So all of that is built in right in this little side menu. So I can just create my whole entire Nearpod lesson in Google Slides and not have to go into Nearpod until I'm ready to launch my lesson, really, once I have finished all that. Questions so far? All right, cool. Let me get out of here. So Nearpod for Subplans is also something that they have. And from the dashboard, you'll notice that under reports, you also have the subplan feature. So this is something kind of new that Nearpod has also developed about creating subplans using Nearpod. What it does is you go in, you create whatever your lesson would be. So it could be either a lesson that's your own from your own library or a lesson that you gathered from the Nearpod library. It could be one or two, depending on how long it is that you're going to take to do this. You put them all together. When you're adding the lessons, it allows you to then also add like notes to the sub, letting them know like what the students are going to do or what this lesson is about. So you could give detailed instructions. And then you're actually able to send the plans, and the plans will be sent to whoever you email it to. So whether it's your admin or your team lead, or you know who your sub is ahead of time and you want to email it to the sub, you can email it to everyone. And then what they'll get is a PDF that has all of like whatever the lesson is, the code for it. In our case, we could post our Nearpod lessons in Google Classroom and not worry about it for the sub. So we know the students can get it. But as a sub, the sub will know what the lesson is, will have the code just in case, and then they'll have the breakdown of what the students are doing. And so they'll get the PDF with all of those lessons and all of the codes, and that way the sub knows exactly what they need to do. So it's one of those things that if you do subplans, you can do it through Nearpod, and it kind of packs it in just a neat little kind of packaging that they did before. I have this short little like video that goes through it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play this quick little video that goes through quickly what the subplan looks like. So that's basically an overview of what the subplans is. It's just an option there, especially with kind of our situation and not knowing when something might happen. It's an option for you to have to be able to create subplans that are still can be like meaningful, and you still know that the students will be able to complete that information, and you can be able to send out that information to whoever, and they'll have the information that's needed for them to do it. So kind of moving into then what we can use Nearpod for. We have a couple of questions before we move on to that. Let me go ahead and take a look at those.
I have a question, but it's not in the chat. Okay, so you said the Nearpod for subplans, and you can send them to the lead teachers, et cetera. So if I get it, and let's say
Miss Escalante, she's sending me subplans, but her substitute can't get into it. Will I have access to it, or do I just send them those same
So
plans?
you would just forward those PDFs to that sub. Like this, when the teacher's already created that lesson. So really what they're getting in the plan is just a breakdown of what the lesson is and the code. Like those things are ready to go. So the students would just have to go ahead and put in the information and start working on it, because they automatically are going to launch in student pace mode.
Okay.
Okay. So Melissa, quick question too. If we could use this for our emergency sub plans, should we do 5 separate plans through Nearpod, or just one set that's for the 5 days of emergency plans?
Well, I would do it separately, because you don't know if you're going to take the 5 days all together or if it's not going to be all together or not. So if it's something that you decide to do with emergency sub plans, I would just do it like separately though.
Okay.
Just in
Makes
case.
sense.
Any other questions? Okay. So other ways that we can kind of use Nearpod that are not just the traditional way that I'm just like launching an assignment or student pace mode. We saw that we can use those activities by themselves. So if you're using activities by themselves, they can serve as kind of bell ringer activities. They can be exit tickets as well. It could be like a quick check-in. Nearpod does have a lot of social emotional learning lessons that are already pre-designed that you can use as weekly check-ins with your students. So these are things that can be used that way. That gamified formative assessment, that time to climb ones, those can be used as reviews throughout the week as you're getting ready to prepare them for other assessments. Extra practice, if I'm using those Nearpod lessons, I've gathered that formative feedback from my students, and I have now kind of seen where students might need certain help. I can create Nearpod lessons then that are designed for those certain students. So those certain students could get a certain type of lesson assigned to them that's going to help remediate whatever it is that they need help with, right? So you can start to differentiate and start to kind of assign and personalize lessons to the students based on their needs using Nearpod to help you identify those needs. Nearpod created this Just a Minute series, which is also part of that new video function that they have. So in the Nearpod library, if you search for Just a Minute, it's going to show you all of these videos that have been created. And so there's videos on all types of different topics. And so these are things that you might use just like a quick kind of engagement tool just at the beginning before you go into a lesson. Maybe students will go ahead and use these quick Just a Minute videos to kind of get everybody warmed up into whatever the lesson is going to be. And so these are all there. You can click on it and it'll give you a breakdown of what the video is about. They're all under like 2 minutes. So they're all super quick videos. They're just meant to be like introductions. It'll give you the transcript of what the whole video is on. It'll show you what the questions are. And it'll show you here as well that it has one multiple choice question and one open-ended question. So you know right away what it is. You'll be able to launch it right away if I want to go ahead and launch it as all together live participation, if I want to do it student pace, that they're doing it on their own, or if I'm just doing it as front of the class and we're all doing it together. And then you can actually then preview what the video is and take a look at the video yourself and take a look at the actual questions before you use it. So that Just a Minute series is a great little kind of lesson starter that can be used. And like I said, it has a whole bunch of different topics. So it can work on a variety of different subjects. It breaks it down by grade level as well that can be used. And you can search and narrow it down by the filter as to what you want to use. The premium packages, like we said, these are things that we have available to us in our school account. So some of the premium packages that we have are the fact that we have packages that are for English language learners as well. And digital citizenship, there's college and career explorations package of series, there's historical perspectives. The social and emotional learning ones are also one that we have, and the vocabulary video pack. And so from the Nearpod library, you'll be able to see where it says premium packages. All of these different things we have access to. So you can go ahead and just go into whichever one you're interested in, both the social and emotional learning. If I would then to click on that, it'll open up. It'll then be broken down further by grade bands. And I can go ahead and preview all of the different lessons that are in there, and I can just pick and choose whichever ones I might find interesting. I could add the whole thing to my library or just pick and choose what I want. And these social emotional learning ones are really just kind of these short little check-ins, and they're on different types of topics. So things like, you know, gratitude and kind of learning to gauge your emotions, you know, seeing what your mood is and how do you control your emotions. So for this is what it, from K to 2, these are the types of topics that it's in. So they all have different topics, all by different grade bands, depending on what you're looking for. So there's a lot of little pre-made ones that you can take a look at that you can kind of use or tweak, but they all have these little check-ins. And so we have access to all these premium packages within the Nearpod library. So if you find something of interest, you can go ahead and click on it and break it down further, and you'll be able to add those to your own library that you could then kind of peruse through later as well. I mean, maybe you just want to save it to your library and then you'll get back to it, but you can add all those things to your library and take a look at it later. Any of these short little activities that I was talking about, yes. Question? Any of these short little activities can be worked in as either things like small check-ins or bell ringers or exit tickets for reviews. And so Nearpod has these things also where they call the skill practice built in as well, where they have lessons that are meant for kind of quick activities. So they have like a whole entire draw it lessons, like 320 lessons on just using the draw it activity on different types of topics. So it's broken down by grade band. Once again, you open it up and it'll then break it down further until the different types of topics that are within that particular lesson. So they have it for the draw it, they have it for like the matching pairs as well. They have it so there's a lot of these like skill-based activities that are already pre-created within Nearpod that you can also take a look at and use for just kind of quick routines that you might want to build in within your lesson. So here's that time to climb one. That's the gamified review one. So if I would take a look at that, and it's going to break it down, then K to 2, they have it for math, they have it for social studies, and then from there, if I click on it, it's broken down further then into each of the different lessons that are in there. And then it'll tell me whatever about the activity is. So there's a lot of these pre-made kind of skill-based activities also within Nearpod to kind of take a look at. So the Nearpod library has so many things, and it's just really taking some time out to kind of investigate and look through it, because there's a lot of things that are already pre-built that you would be able to use within your lessons. And from there, you can always customize them and change them. You don't have to keep it as is, but at least it gives you a starting point where it gives you an idea, and then from there you can just kind of tweak it to whatever works for you. I think there was a couple of hands up before. Any questions? Ms. Ketcheside, you still have your hand up, or is it?
I know, I forgot. I'm sorry, I found the answer, so I forgot to put my hand up.
Okay, no problem.
Mine was just, you mentioned about the new feature that now I think it's called front of the class view. Can you show us what that kind of looks like? Is that like if I'm presenting my slides, I can put in a little Nearpod
So the front of the class view, basically what it means is it's just like you presenting the presentation and you just all doing it all together as a class. That's great for like if like not everybody has a device. Everybody does the front of the class because you're not logging, the students aren't logging in with the code. You're just doing it all together as a class collaboratively. So the activity, everything is all happening together.
Right, so in first grade, with the, and kinder probably like logging in and logging off to different platforms. sometimes we just want to do like a lesson. I just like the format of Nearpod and being able to use like vocabulary and all that. So is that something that you would recommend like for that? Like I would just present it. The kids would
so
be
you
watching
would
me
be
on
able
Zoom.
just to do the front of the class, and then you would just kind of do all the things just together
I would
as
do
a
it for
class,
them, like,
just
ask them
talking
to-
it. Yeah.
Cool.
So for that in particular, they don't have to then do it individually to have to do it. So for differentiation, like we mentioned, Nearpod is great for that because you could use lessons and you can eventually take those lessons and use that lesson and then duplicate it and then tweak it depending on the needs of the students, right? So if I have a lesson that has certain topics, I could take that lesson, and then if I need to change the wording on it, if I need to change the activities on it, you know, I can do that for different lessons, and I can adapt my lessons to my students. You can assign specific lessons depending on the topic to specific students, right? And in classroom, that's great because you can assign things to individual students if you need to. So if I want to assign a certain Nearpod to a few students and a different Nearpod to others, you can within the Google Classroom. For centers, it also works in a way to use it for centers in a sense because you can have different Nearpod lessons with different topics, and then you'll have different groups of students working on those different Nearpod lessons. Whether all of them eventually will rotate to it will depend on your center, but it could also be divided into centers in that sense. They can be in breakout rooms working on that lesson, right, on those different types of lesson depending on the breakout room, and they're working on that lesson. So it's really however you decide to break it down, but it does kind of lend itself to work in a kind of center rotation in that sense. You can also use it as choice boards, right? And so this is something that if you had like early finishers or something that could work for a success block activity as well. If you do something that you gauge your students and you get like student interest and you find out overall the different types of students that you have in your class, what they're interested in, you can create a choice board using Nearpod activities based on those interests. And so students could then complete choice boards and complete whatever those lessons are. So if I have here linked a choice board template, so it would be something like this. I would have like my slide presentation, and then this would be like my choice board. And so here would be whatever my Nearpod code is, and then a little bit of description of the topic. And so I could then assign this to my student if it was an early finisher or whatever it is that they're doing, and I can be like, okay, I want you to complete, you know, 2 of these that interest you, or whatever it might be. So this is something that can be done as well and use Nearpod activities for choice boards as well, depending, kind of gauging it on the interests of the students themselves. And so all of these resources, well, they're linked on the presentation as well. And then in the Google Classroom, I have, as I did the Nearpod resources, I have it linked to the Nearpod itself, but also to the Nearpod blog, which also contains a lot of useful information and ideas. They have a lot of educators that do guest blog points. And so they talk about a lot of different ways that they use Nearpod in their class as well. And so the blog is a great starting point as well to gather ideas of different ways that people are using Nearpod as well. So any other final questions as we start to wrap up? I think time is almost up. Yep.
I always have a question, sorry.
Okay.
You know when you did the choice board where you put all the different codes? When they, like, can they click on the code? Like, is it linkable, or do they have to know the code and then go to Nearpod and enter it? Or is there a way to just...
So what you can do is then from Nearpod, you can either create it within Google Classroom and just have them click it directly from Google Classroom in that way.
And that automatically logs them in because they're logged in through Google. So if you have the setting right, it gives you their name automatically, right?
Exactly. So yeah, so when I want to launch this, I could go ahead and link it there. So I can take that, copy that link, and then on my choice board, I would put whatever my code is, and I could just link it there. So technically I could, I'll link it, and so they can click on it and it'll link them directly to that code. So that would work too. Or yeah, you can just go ahead and post it into your Google Classroom and share it that way as well.
Melissa, do you know if you can edit already made Nearpods, like the ones that are for exit tickets, like life skills or ELA things, and if you want to add it to your library, can you go in there and you can, because if the question doesn't match us, like your old school, you know, whatever, like everyone maybe has been to ACES, old school.
Yeah, you can, yeah, any pre-made Nearpods, when you add it to your library, you can then go ahead and customize it to however you want to. So you can change those pre-made Nearpod lessons to however you like.
Thank you. This is really awesome. I'm loving it.
No problem. All right. Any other final questions? Because that about wraps it up for us since it's getting to be 5 o'clock. So basically that is kind of Nearpod now in a nutshell. It has a lot of different things, and I know it's like mostly you kind of look at it and you're like, oh yeah, there it is. But we really kind of take a look and dive deep into Nearpod. I want to take this chance to take a look at everything that it does let you do now, so you are able to use it a lot easier than it did when it first came out. So yeah, basically that's it for Nearpod. On Thursday, then we'll have a chance to actually take a look and spend some time going into the Nearpod library then, like we did before, into your breakout rooms and taking a look at the different types of activities that you actually can use with your classes. And so we'll do that on Thursday when we come back together. So other than that, have a great evening.